Somebody's glad to get out of class, right? I do live in L.A., that's Lower Alabama. Ever get lost, you're probably in Alabama. You see that movie, My Cousin Benny? That's Alabama. By the way, I might even have relatives here today. You ever cut your grass and find a car? Half the cars your family own don't run. Hey, cuz, what's up? Can they hear your car before they see it? Yeah, I got some cousins out there. Has your mother ever been in a fist fight at a football game and won? There it is. Of course, I'll never be the man my mother was. You didn't mess with my lady, boy. She's tougher than woodpecker lips, you know what I'm saying? Does your mother own a homemade fur coat? You love your pets, recycle them. And the more I see of the human race, the more I love pets. Has your family ever been asked to leave the zoo for harassing the monkeys? I don't know if I'd answer that one. Does the TV that you have at home that works sitting on a TV that don't work? Come on now. There we go. Come on. Just stack them on up there. By the way, you guys think you got it tough? We had to get up to change the channels. That was a good line, went right over your head. And don't try to tell us to say no to crack, we just pull up our overalls. That'll sneak up on you by lunchtime. No, it's good to be in Texas, man. It's good to be in Texas. By the way, I'm glad y'all got a sense of humor. Did you know God had a sense of humor? Look at the one sitting next to you. Trigger or treat, look at his image. I say beauty is skin deep, but ugly goes to the bone. No, don't go down that road, man. You know? But if the barn needs painting, paint the thing, you know what I'm saying? I love what you ladies do, how you put that camouflage on every morning. It's amazing what you do. By the way, that's the root word to cosmetics. It's cosmos. Means to put in order that which is in chaos. Some of you ladies, you still use those curlers up there? You can get all kind of stations with those things up there. Radio Free Europe, here it comes. But anyway, I'm glad you all put that good stuff on your face, you know. We really appreciate it, of course. Some of us, it's way too late. And I don't talk about people's looks. Look at this face. Look what I had to live with. You think your life's tough? Man, when I was born, the doctor looked at me and smacked my mother. You claiming this? Had to tie a bone around my neck to get the dog to play with me. One guy said I looked like I fell from an ugly tree, hit every limb on the way down. Well, that'll make your day, won't it? Anyway, it's tough. Traveling all the time. By the way, it's tough to stay in shape when you're on the road all the time. You know, I've tried the workouts. You know that Nordic track? Hit a tree first time I took it out. And the rowing machines, they don't work. I lost all those. They went right to the bottom. But I got the best workout in the world, man. I get up in the morning, no matter where I am, I run around the block about 6 times, then push the block back under the bed and go to sleep. Too dizzy to leave the house. No, but you gotta have a sense of humor. Watch out for people that don't have a sense of humor. They're weird. Out there hugging trees. sense of humor. You got to be able to roll with the punches in life today. What a time to be alive. Live in a country where people now are expressing their frustration and anger by killing everybody around them. How does that happen? By the way, they do find a common denominator, these violent people that want to take people down before they die. Video games. Violent video games. See, it proves that what you sow, you reap. What you reap, you eat. Life tastes bad. Guess who's cooking? You cannot fill your mind with violence without it eventually coming out. Back in 2004, I had the tremendous privilege of traveling to Afghanistan. I took some buddies with me, and we went over there to say thank you to so many of these wonderful men and women who are leaving their families and their jobs and their friends, and sometimes their life. And what a privilege it was to stand in front of them and make it personal, to thank them for the sacrifice. Because freedom is never free. That stuff doesn't last until somebody stands up to the opposition. And right now there's a big debate whether or not has any respect left in the world today. When all these things take place and we just talk about it. And the people, we haven't won a war since 1945. But we still got, thank God, a handful of men and women who will travel around the world and fight and die for people who hate us, who want to see us destroyed as a nation. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of guts. I had a gentleman ask me recently, what do you think of your country now? What do you think about America? How do you see this country? So I reached back in the eons of my brain and I pulled out some words that I somehow might be appropriate. I had a dream the other night. I didn't understand. A stranger walked in through the mist with a flintlock rifle in his hands. His clothes were torn and dirty. As he stood beside my bed, he took off a three-cornered hat. Speaking low to me, he said, "We fought a revolution to secure your liberty. We wrote the Constitution as a shield from tyranny. For future generations, this legacy we gave to make you the land of the free and home of the brave. The freedoms we secured for you, we thought you'd always keep. The tyrants labored endlessly while your parents were asleep. Now your freedom's gone, your courage is lost. You're no more than a slave in the land of the free, home of the brave. You buy permits to travel, permits to own a gun, permits to start a business or build a place for one on land you think you own. You pay your yearly rent, but you don't have a voice in saying how that money's spent. Your children may attend a school that doesn't educate. Your Christian values can't be taught according to the state. You read about your daily news in a regulated press. You pay more taxes than you owe to that thing called IRS. Your money's no longer made of silver or gold. You trade your wealth for paper so your life can be controlled. You pay for crimes that make your nation turn from God in shame. And now you've taken Satan's number and traded in your name. Give your government control, they could do you harm. They could burn down churches and seize your family farm and keep your nation deep in debt while putting men of faith in jail, then harass your fellow countrymen while your corrupt courts prevail. Your public servants don't uphold the solemn oath they've sworn, and now your daughters visit doctors so their children won't be born. Your leaders send guns and artillery to foreign shore. You send your youth to slaughter, fighting other people's wars. Could you regain the freedoms for which we fought and died? Or have you lost your courage and your faith to stand with pride, and are there no more values for which you fight to save? Or do you want your children to live in fear and be a slave? And citizens of this republic, time to rise and take a stand. Defend the Constitution, the supreme law of your land. Protect your great republic and every God-given right. And pray to God to keep the torch of freedom burning bright. As I awoke, he vanished. In the midst of which he came, but his words are true. We are not free, but we have ourselves to blame. For even now, as tyrants trample each God-given right, we only watch and tremble, too afraid to stand and fight. But if he stood by your bedside in a dream while you were asleep and wondered what remains of the freedoms we fought to keep, what would be your answer if he called out from the grave? Is it still the land of the free and home of the brave? Young people, my generation betrayed you. We've twisted everything to make it look absolutely different. Politically correct, I think, is the expression. What does it mean? I don't have any idea. But I do know that the people that I look up to and the people that fought and died and some of your fine teachers who could make a whole lot more money going somewhere else doing something else, they're not worried about being politically correct. They're concerned about teaching you what you need to face some very difficult times that are coming. We have forgotten how we got here. I fought the British redcoats, served Washington with pride. I marched with Grant and yes with Lee and fell at Custer's side. I made a charge up San Juan Hill. I held the Alamo. A mounting threat to world peace, they called me to go. I lost tons of blood in World War I and II in desert sand and jungle trees. They pulled me from the burning wreckage and buried me at sea. At Korea's 38th parallel, I fought amidst the sham. I left my loved ones, took up arms, and died in Vietnam. On every kind of battlefield, desert sand, or jungle marsh, I've seen brave soldiers give their lives in conditions brutal and harsh. I viewed the bombed out cities. I mourned for all that was lost. I pondered in my saddest hour, what could warrant such a human cost? The answer, of course, is freedom. Freedom defines the job I do. I volunteer, I'm called, I serve on freedom's maintenance crew. Whether career or citizen soldier, I serve the highest plan. It's called duty, honor, God, and country. Because I am the American fighting man. You see, young people, this is these days we live in are so difficult. To keep your focus, to establish your priorities. In other words, what is the main thing of your life? Because it's been said the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. We all live on the basis of priorities. And you know that the majority of this country can rarely ever tell you what the most important thing in life is? Well, it comes down to what you really think. The attitude, the motivation, the enthusiasm, the respect, the integrity, courage, and ambition or aspiration. These are the qualities that I think make up this country. I think this is what America was founded on. And now we apologize for things that we should never ignore or deny. One nation under God. You know why the eagle should always be at the top of the flag? You realize the eagle shows you the character of God. Their loyalty to one another, their ability to defend each other, how they care for their young, their faithfulness, their strength, their power. Because I don't think America has flown like an eagle for a long, long time. I'm not trying to be critical. That's what all the talk shows are about. Always telling you how wrong things are. I wish they'd just come out one day and tell you about all the wonderful things that are right. How come the empty wagons rattle the loudest? How come we always emphasize the violence? Let me tell you what negativity will do to you. It'll turn you into a cynic. See, I was a cynic when I was your age. If you remember, I had that experience with my little buddy. I was playing ball at that parking lot, and I hit the ball over his head and it rolled up behind the church. And when he ran to get the ball, the preacher cut him down, called him names, chased him off. He didn't even know my friend. And when he came back to me and I looked at his face and I said, Russ, see, we both stuttered terribly. That's one of the reasons we bonded as friends. We could talk better together than with other people because they always had to make an issue of the fact that we stuttered and couldn't get our words out. And I said, Russ, what'd that man say? Said he didn't want me around because I'm black. Do you have any idea what that did to me? I never noticed that he was different color. It never dawned on me because none of us choose our colors or our parents or our background. You know, you just learn to live with it. You know, parents are under pressure, man. Where do you go to school to be a parent? Where do you go to school to be a good mate? Why do you think they say things that don't make any sense? Have you ever heard your mother say something like, you go out there and cut your legs off in that lawnmower, don't come running to me? Sit down, Mom, take another Prozac. Has your mom ever got upset and asked silly questions like, you want me to smack your face? We got choices now? Right over here, son, huh? And am I the only one in here that heard this growing up? Were you born in a barn? I go, no. No. My brother started laughing. What are you laughing at? He, no. What are you supposed to do when your parents look at you and they go, you look at me when I'm talking to you, don't look at me like that. No wonder we're two-faced. You don't know which one to put on. Dads, now watch out, them dads, they're strange. They might ask you a question you may not want to answer immediately. What's the matter? You think I'm stupid? Don't tempt me, old man. It's tough to be responsible for a family, to be accountable. And if you're loved in your home, if you have parents that actually love you, you are so rare. I've been in schools where 9 out of 10 of the girls were already mothers, and not one guy had the guts to hang in there. Now, you want to talk about attitude, accountability? These things that somehow we just figure, well, does it really matter? Well, it sure does. You're going to stand one day before some kind of preacher or justice of peace and say words about till death us do part? Well, just think. What does I pledge allegiance? I pledge loyalty? You mean to tell me you actually have within you something that's related to the things that this flag stands for? While in Afghanistan, I had the honor of having an honor guard bring out an American flag, holding it wide open, and when they begin the folds, I gave the 13 folds at a funeral. Every one of those folds represents something that used to represent so much of what America was. Most people have never heard it. As I said, most people don't even know what the red, white, and blue represents anymore. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. You think we're united? We've never been more divided now than we've ever been. Because you ask the average person, why did you vote the way you voted? Did you vote your convictions? Did you vote for freedom or security? What's the difference between freedom and security? Freedom is something you're going to pay for. Security is something you want without paying. It means I expect the government to take care of me. By the way, if the government takes care of you, if they lift you up, they can drop you. If they buy you, they can sell you. The government's trying to play God. The purpose of the government was to defend your rights, privacies, and freedoms, not to take care of you and pay your bills. What do you think free enterprise stands for? People that use their imagination, their talent, their abilities, their strengths, and they go out there and they bless others. They produce. They're the makers, not the takers. Now, there are some wonderful people in this world that deserve help. You realize a lot of our vets right now are coming back maimed, with members of their body gone, and now the government expects them to pay the tab? You take care of your vets. You take care of the elderly. You take care of the people that need the help. Well, this country's got an attitude of entitlement. Somebody owes me something. You feel that way? Life's going to be pretty ugly by the time you figure out what day it is. I'm talking about attitude, the A of America. You're not what you think you are, but you are what you think. And see, when that preacher cut down my friend, I reacted so violently because I figured this man must be a hypocrite. He's got the mask on, he talks about the good book and God's love and all that stuff, and yet he had an attitude towards someone's skin. How blind can you be? But you see, some people love to hide behind that mask. That's why I love these words. When you get what you want in the struggle for self and the world makes you king for a day, go to the mirror, look at yourself, see what that guy has to say. It's not your father, your mother, your wife, whose judgment upon you will pass. The verdict that counts the most in the world is the one coming back from the glass. Well, the world may say you're a stray shooting chum and call you a wonderful guy. The one in the mirror says, you're a bum, you won't look me in the eye. He's the one you face, forget the rest. You see, he's with you to the end, and you pass the most dangerous, difficult test if the one in the glass is your friend. You can fool the world down the pathway of years, get pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be sorrow and tears because you cheated the one in the glass. Some of you are eat up with peer pressure. Look, there is positive and negative peer pressure. And every one of you represent one or the other. When I talk about motivation, the M of America, I love to talk about that football player years ago up in North Carolina who broke the running back record for the history of the school. And they wanted to interview him, obviously, because the colleges wanted to recruit this young man. And so they went to his house, and you remember they wanted to do it in his room, and they walked into this high school senior's room. Didn't even look like he lived there. The place was immaculate. It was clean. The bed was made. And one guy said, your mother works hard around here. He said, that's true, but the room is my responsibility. Oh, really? You keep it like this? Yes, sir. Why? It's a way of saying, I love you, Mom, without using words. Saw a sign on the wall that says, drugs and alcohol belong to the chumps, but never the champs of life. And one guy says, you don't go out there and booze it up with your jock buddies on the weekend? He said, no, sir, that's not me. Saw another sign that really surprised him. It said, true love waits. One guy said, you're not a bad-looking dude, man. You don't go out there and bird dog them girls and see how far you can mess with them? He said, no, sir, that's not me either. One guy said, what about peer pressure? He said, mister, I am peer pressure. By the way, so are you. Do you realize that what you are right now is affecting everybody around you? Do you realize every day you walk into this school, you either build it up or tear it down? This is a great school because you're here, or it's less than what it could be. You see, the great test. You want to talk about motivation? One of the great tests of life I want you to take with me. If I ever got on TV, I'd love to have this nation ask this question and see how it fits. You ready? Listen to these words and then repeat it for yourself. If every American was just like me, what kind of America will America be? You see, every one of us are blessing or cursing everybody around us by what we believe and our motivation. A You motivated to make money? If you do it legitimately, you're a blessing. But if you want to take shortcuts in this world, every time I speak in a jail or a prison, and I spend a lot of time in detention centers all over the country, and I tell some of these young guys and ladies, you're not here because of what you did. You're only here because they caught you. What if all the facts were laid on the table? Would any of us walk out of here? Many years ago, I visited a prison that I was teaching convicts how to grow up. And I asked the assistant warden if I could visit old Sparky, the electric chair. Had another name for it called Hot Mama. I think you're going to understand. Well, I walked in there and he said, why you want to visit the death seat? I said, because I'm talking to some hard-headed guys, man, and kids who think that that's the highway of the heroes. That's, you know, if you make it to death row, you're bad to the bone. I said, I'd like to head them off. Tell me, how's the guy die? How does someone die when they sit in that thing? He said, well, I'll tell you. By the way, there were 13 steps from the holding cell to the chair. I don't know if they planned that, but it was interesting. And then they sit you down and they shave your head. And then they blindfold you because the people that are watching you die, some are looking forward to it and others, of course, are not. They don't want to see your eyes fly out of your face. So they blindfold you. And everything in your bladder and bowels comes out. They don't clean you up. They drag you out of the chair, put you in a body bag, and before they throw the dirt on an unmarked grave, they throw a cigar box with everything on planet that you own. I said, by the way, has anybody ever sat in that chair and got up and walked out? He said, not yet. I said, you mind if I sit down? He said, you're weird. I said, what you don't know, sir, is many years ago, I almost bought that chair. I let my bitterness and my anger and my self-pity and revenge, and they all led me to one night, I just lost it. I almost murdered somebody. And I said, the only reason I didn't is because the grace of God had something better for me. And I said, by the way, there was somebody who died in my place. It wasn't a chair, it was a cross. He went to death row for all of us. And then turned it into everlasting life 3 days later. So I sat down. Kind of eerie feeling, you know. Then he asked me, if this was your last day on earth, what would be your last request? I said, hold my hand. He didn't laugh. But I got up and walked out, and I had the eerie feeling of knowing I'm still free. Not because I'm good, not because I deserve it, but because I have been delivered by the power and the love of Almighty God. Changed my motivations, that's for sure. Changed my priorities. And 55 some odd years ago, I started working with troubled kids because that's the only people I could understand. And I've been doing it ever since. Even in the United States Army, where we saw some very difficult times. See, the Army Rangers, most of what we do, we never talk about. And I've always had kids say, well, what's it like, man, to jump out of a perfectly good airplane at a few thousand feet? I said, well, it's about the most exciting thing you can do with your clothes on. It's okay to laugh if you're going to let it out. Can I get a witness here, huh? By the way, let's talk about this. Enthusiasm? I'm going to come back to that. Let's talk about respect. By the way, gentlemen, when you take a lady out, what's your motive? What's your agenda? You do it because you respect her? Are you aware that most of the girls that you date right now is going to grow up one day and marry another man, be the mother of his kids? You're messing with somebody else's future mate. How would you like to meet the guy dating the girl you hope to marry? What would you tell him? You think that young lady deserves to have guilt or shame or regret because of spending time with you? How do you want your kids to talk to you one day? You're going to be the kind of parent that says, you do what I say, not what I do. Because what we do speaks so loud, they often don't hear what we have to say about life and love and respect. By the way, I have no illusions about you ladies joining the military, but I would never put you in combat. It's not that you can't fight. That's not the issue. You give automatic weapons to 100 women at the wrong time of the month, you got yourself a real war. No, ladies, you know how to fight probably as well as any guy because you got that instinct to defend those you love. But would you put your mother in Afghanistan? Would you put your mother in Iraq? Would you send her into a battlefield? What's wrong with this country? Oh, you must be a chauvinist. That's what you are. You're a male chauvinist. I don't care how you read me. But I have been married 48 years with the greatest woman I ever met by accident. Because I know what love does. Love doesn't hurt. Do you realize that almost half of married women in this country are terrorized in their own home? What's that all about? You got a father who abuses you and your brothers and your mom? Domestic violence? Well, I got a cure for some of that. But you wouldn't want to put the power in my hands. Why do we spend all that money to put people in prison? Do you realize that what it costs to keep somebody incarcerated? They could send you to the finest colleges on planet Earth for a whole lot less than what it costs to lock up a bunch of maniacs. But you wouldn't want to talk to me about what I think we ought to do about the violence and the criminals and the rapists in this country. And those who mess with little kids, boy, have I got a cure for them. You see, love fights back. Love defends. Love protects. By the way, if you're a student in this school and you got enough self-respect for you that you step up to the plate when some poor kid's being picked on around here and you shut some bully down and show him that you care, you've just made a friend for the rest of your life. How do you handle bullies? By the way, let me ask you a question. How many have ever been around sheep? Anybody ever been around little lambs and sheep? Okay. Aren't they beautiful? Aren't they just amazing little creatures having a good time out in the meadow? Well, let me tell you something about lambs. They're naive. They're not necessarily stupid, they're naive. You know why? They do not have a frame of reference for violence. They're scared of their own shadow. If they get near running water, they'll die of thirst before they put their little mug down there because they know they're like a sponge and they'll go down and die, drown. And sometimes they'll eat things that'll make them sick. And if they ever fall over in a ditch or a hole and they can't get up, they'll colic and die, and the rest of the sheep will just stand there and go, bah, bah. You see, without shepherd, without protection, without security, sheep die. And they always seem to stray. They don't have a good navigational system. And by the way, some of you in this school, you're like little lambs. You're innocent. You don't have a chip on your shoulder. You're not trying to prove anything. You're smart enough to know we're not here to please people. We're here to respect each other and lift each other up. If somebody wants to mess with you, by the time you figure out who your enemy is, it'll be too late. But what do you do? See, there's teachers in this school that would probably step up to the plate if some violent fool decided to walk in here. Of course, if they did it while I'm here, you're going to see a part of me I never wanted you to see. Because I know how to take out the trash. The Army pays us or pays a lot of money to teach us how to do it. But what do you do when there's no shepherd to guard the sheep? You train an amazing creature called a sheepdog. By the way, I consider myself a sheepdog. By the way, you never let a sheepdog attack the sheep. You get rid of it. But the sheepdog listens and smells for one purpose: to take out the wolves, the bears, the things that threaten the life of the lambs, sheep. I think I'm a pretty good sheepdog. By the way, so are you. If you care about your little brothers and sisters, you care about other kids around there, you look out for them, you would defend them, you got sheepdog in you. It's a wonderful thing. By the way, sheep don't like sheepdogs because we look like wolves. But you want to know why I consider myself a pretty important sheepdog? The Lord is my shepherd. He taught me to care. And when He teaches you to love and care and defend one another, you become the hero of tomorrow. And we need you. We need you. We need sheepdogs around. Well, the eyes integrity of America. Can you be trusted? Good homework or homework assignment. Write down your honor code. Not the one you know, the one you live with. You ever steal what wasn't yours? You ever take a grade you didn't earn? You're going to get a real report card one day. See, there are no shortcuts. You get pleasure out of making people miserable? You like to be rich at the expense of somebody else's money? Can you be bought? Then you can be sold. It's not what you have, it's what you are that makes you rich. And if you know what I'm saying, you'll never be bought off in this world. And you'll have a lot of respect for what you own and what other people own, for their rights. Yeah, I love to talk about basketball. I was born in Indiana. I used to be able to shoot some hoops. I was just too short and the wrong color. But if I came in here with my over-the-hill gang, I wanted to play your team, is it okay if I move that free throw line up a little bit? Is that okay for y'all? A little too far back for me right now. And hey, I got me a Kmart special. I'm gonna bring a Kmart basket in here. I'll show you how an old man can look like a Michael Jordan. And then I'm gonna bring in my referees. They just got out of prison. They're dressed like referees, but they know how to play my game. You see, I'm gonna beat you because I'm gonna change the rules. You say that's not how you play. Then why is that how you live? You have an honor code? If you had a business, would you hire you? Can you depend on you? When you say you'll do something, do you follow through? That's what champions do. Their word is their bond. And to see courage. Land of the free only as long as remain home of the brave. Back on April 9, 1969, in Asia Valley, Vietnam, the movie Hamburger Hill was a story of Bruce King. First lieutenant from North Dallas, Texas. Bruce King was the first lieutenant over a handful of troops at a place called Asia Valley, the 101st Airborne. But the day he died, he pulled out a blood-stained notebook out of his fatigues and handed it to the medic and said, "Get this back to my family in Texas, because I'm not going to make it." When that notebook got back, they read it at the funeral, and it was, he wrote his own funeral. By the way, heroes always do. And as they stood there and read this letter in front of his parents, imagine writing something like this. If I died during my tour in Vietnam, I want my family to read and understand that I came here by choice. I joined the Army by choice. I chose to be an infantry officer. It was my destiny, being a soldier, fighting for freedom, right or wrong. It's a job that must be done. It's the job I do best. He said, Americans forget what that flag stands for, but I'm a patriot. I believe in this country. I believe in our system of government. And to me, it's worth fighting for and if need be dying for. The country we have today was not built by the weak and the unbelieving, but by the blood of those who felt they had something worth fighting for. And I think it is the right, the duty, and the privilege of every American to fight for freedom. It has to be that way. And I thank God there's still those left to believe. He mentioned the people in the streets who protest this country and its politics. And he said they have the right to protest because men believed enough in the system to die for it. He said there's still Americans with dreams and ideals that I feel worth fighting for. This is what I believe. If I die, my life bought something. It wasn't wasted. I believe it or I wouldn't be here. And then when he closed, he said, I'm a believer, I'm a dreamer, I'm a patriot, but most of all, I'm a professional soldier in the United States Army from the bottom of my boot to the top of my steel pot, and I feel proud and honored to serve this country with those who believe. My life was not wasted. Your loving son, Bruce. And then his last words were thanks for everything. Years ago in North Dallas, I stood in his high school. There were teachers that remembered him, and then his dad was sitting out there. The dad came to me before the assembly and said, see me afterward. So I met him out in the parking lot. He said, wait right here. And he went to his car and came back with a box. He said, I want you to have what's in this box. It's my most valuable possession. I don't want my family, I don't want anyone else to have this. You have remembered my boy all these years. And when I will finally, you see me get back in that car and drive away, then I want you to open it. And so I watched him as he walked to his car because he had 6 months to live. He had cancer. And as he drove away, I opened the box. And there were all the medals that his son had earned in fighting for freedom, and you and me. I still have them. I carry it with me. Because it's some things you never forget. Like that little boy who came to me in a school and said, we don't do the pledge in my school. But I do it every morning because I got my granddaddy's flag on my wall. I got his picture there. He said, my granddaddy died for that flag. And I'm so proud to have it. Because my feet hit the floor. First thing I do every morning is I greet the picture. I say, good morning, Grandpa. And he says, I look at that flag and I pledge allegiance to it. And I mean every word that I say. By the way, I went to the high school that afternoon, and when I told them about that young man who pledged the flag by himself, both schools began to do the Pledge of Allegiance. You see, when you start doing the right things on your own, it's contagious. It passes on, and others are inspired. And the C is courage, and you just heard the best definition of courage from First Lieutenant Bruce King, Army Airborne Ranger. How do you define courage? What are we afraid of? Why is it everywhere I go I hear people talk about the fact that you cannot mention your faith? You can't talk about your Savior. Oh no, we can't do that. I've even passed out coins, and I have some here today to give you as a reminder. I want you to have one. And I've actually had principals look at that coin and say, oh, we can't pass this out. Why, that's got a Bible verse on it. Do you realize what the Bible represents? It's not a book, it's a man. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And walked on this earth. And bled and died and came back from the dead. That's not fantasy, that's history, that's life. You afraid of His words? No wonder this country's weak. No wonder we're apologetic all over the world for the things we do. No wonder right now we can't even stop the insanity that's in our neighborhoods. Well, attitude, motivation, enthusiasm, respect, integrity, courage. The last A is ambition or aspiration. Have you ever inspired people with your life? I don't know if I referred to this last time, but I hope I did, because it's one of the greatest stories. If you've ever seen the movie Rudy, you saw a story of how that young man gave it all, man, for the dream of just running out on that field one day for Notre Dame. And everybody said he couldn't do it. But he stood up against all the opposition. And he only had one friend that believed in him, and when he passed, it was a lonely trip. but he won. I hope y'all see the movie Rudy. But I'm talking about another little Rudy. This young boy, years ago, played football for high school, but he wasn't very big. He never made first string. And one day they were practicing, and the coach got a note from the office, and he gave it to him. He said, "Son, read this. It's from the office." And he looked at it, and his eyes teared up, and the coach says, "What's wrong, boy?" He said, "I got to go home. My daddy just died." "You just lost your dad?" "Yes, coach." "Well, don't come to the game tomorrow night. The homecoming game, don't come. You take care of your brother and your mama, okay?" Kid looked up and said, "Coach, what you don't know is tomorrow night is the biggest game of my life. I'll be dressed out. You be ready to put me in this game because you're going to need me." He didn't understand that. But as the next night came, he was dressed out, and wherever the coach moved, he moved right with him like a shadow. And sure enough, man, by halftime, they were so far behind, he later said, "I put him in to shut him up because I figured we're going to lose this game." But when he got in the huddle, something happened. Something amazing seemed to take place. The spirit of these guys, the attitude to drive on, man, and start changing. And they start pushing the other team all over the field. And this kid intercepted a pass in the last few seconds of the game and ran 70 yards. Nobody even touched him. And they won that game. They turned that game around. Man, it looked impossible at halftime. And the people couldn't wait to get on the field to thank them and congratulate them. And the big coach got up there next to that little guy, and he said, "Son, I've seen a lot of games, but I've never seen anybody play any harder than you did tonight, son. What got a hold of you?" He said, "Daddy, but I'm sorry, you know your daddy's gone." He said, "Oh, I know that, Coach. But you didn't know my daddy was blind, and tonight was the first time Dad ever saw me play." You know, there's a song written called "The Blind Man in the Bleachers," about a dad who showed up every game to support his son even though he could never see him. But when that man passed, that boy told his team, "Tonight, heaven's going to open and Daddy's going to watch me play for the first time. Let's show my daddy that it's worth it." And I'm telling you, gang, you could inspire, you could become the hero of tomorrow for the school. You can make a difference, not just make a living. I wasn't very good at academics, and the last thing I ever wanted to do was stand up in front of somebody and speak, because I stuttered so bad. It took me forever to break the habit to be able to talk. But if what you do is motivated by love, you will find a way to conquer and overcome all the obstacles of life, because I can't actually live on I won't streak. Once you get out of your comfort zone, you'll always tell when you're growing because you do things that make your palms sweat. Once you get out of your comfort zone and take a stand in this world will salute you. I remember a little girl back in Alabama named Jeannie Wilson. You talk about inspiration. Jeannie is a 3-time world, 7-time gold medal weightlifter, 125-pound blonde, can bench over 185 pounds. You may not be impressed, but you would if you lived in her wheelchair. By the way, I think there's a young student somewhere in the school today in a wheelchair. I haven't had a chance to meet him, but I hope I get a chance. You try spending one day in a wheelchair. I've been telling schools forever that if you could just get a wheelchair in here and make every senior spend one day in it, it would change the way you look at people who are handicapped and hurt. Jeannie had spina bifida, never walked a day in her life. She called me years ago, and it was late at night, and she called with a raspy voice because see, it affects her larynx. And she got on that phone, and I said, "Jeannie, talk slow, I want to hear this." And she said something like, "Gary, they called and told me I was elected Wheelchair Athlete of America next year." You see, you got to aim high and never quit. Never give up, never surrender. Because you're living in a world of lies and hypocrisy, young people. You're living in a world of smoke and mirrors, because what we see is not really what's real. Many years ago, there was a fire that broke out in a large apartment building up in Chicago. And a lot of those people died in their sleep. They didn't have smoke alarms. They didn't have modern techniques of fighting fires they do today. And this little mother woke up in time to grab two of her kids. She had one under each arm folded in blankets, and she drug them from the 3rd floor down to the parking lot. And as she laid them at the foot of a friend, she said, "Please watch him. I got to go back. My baby boy is still upstairs." So she charged back into that flaming apartment building and made it to the 2nd floor when a large arm grabbed her and said, "Lady, you got to get out of here. It's coming down." And she looked up and said, "Please let me go get my baby boy. He's still up there." And this firefighter looked at her. He said, "Lady, tell me in detail, where's your little boy?" She said, "3rd floor, 4 doors on the right, 2nd room, there's a crib. Please hurry." He said, "You get out of here. I'll get him." So he went back. And when she came out of there without her baby, and the people said, where's your... She said, "The firefighter, he's going to get him. He's going to save him. He's going to get him for me." And sure enough, they waited. All these people were waiting to see if he could make it. And as the flames began to go through that apartment building, they had doubts, but all of a sudden, he reached down. He did find the room, and he found the crib, and he reached down in all that smoke, and he just grabbed that little body. It was wrapped in a blanket, and he held it like a football, and he turned to fight his way back out that building. When he finally got to that parking lot, he could hardly breathe, but the people cheered, and he walked over to this loving mother. You can imagine how relieved she was when he handed her that little body, and all of a sudden, she began to feel something. And then she removed the blanket. And then she screamed and fainted. You see, the firefighter accidentally picked up the doll. You see the world you're in? Feels good. Looks good. I'm confident. I'm sincere. Trying to do the right thing. You can't blame that dear guy for the mistake. But who are you going to blame one day when you look at your whole life and realize you bought into the wrong things? And life is going to blow up in your face. And those in your family are going to suffer. I tell you, this is the battlefield you're in, gang. But with the power of the living Christ in your life, you can overcome anything. By the way, Jeannie always wears a sweatshirt, and it has her motto from the scriptures of Philippians 4:13, "I can do all things through Christ, which gives me strength." When I was here before, I think I told you about the red, white, and blue. Especially my grandson gives it to you. The red is courage and valor. The blue is justice and honor. And the white, purity and righteousness. And I'm so glad that my grandson knew that there's only one way, one truth, and one life to prepare for eternity. And that's to put your faith, your simple childlike faith, in the work of Christ. Just ask Him to be your Savior. Just a simple word. I need a Savior. Father, I need your boy in my life. I need Christ. That's all. Because you know my boy is already in heaven. It's been 2 years since August 1st that I lost him. I'm not the only one in this room who lost somebody you love more than life. But he was ready to go. Let me ask you something. Are you ready to face eternity? Don't you ever allow the voices of hell to talk you down into suicide. You're not ready for this side of life. You're not ready for the other side of life because you're not coming back. Don't you ever throw your life away. You're the most valuable thing this country's got. Don't you let those negative thoughts beat you down till one day you end it all. You're not ready to face the other side. Don't ever disgrace your nation or your family or your school or your Savior by throwing your life away. Don't you go down that road. Please talk to somebody. There's people here who care for you. But don't ever make that decision. It only pushes other weak people closer to the edge. The last thing I dealt with in Afghanistan was a suicide. We left that country with a broken heart. but I hope you'll turn it around in your life. See, young people, until you get this straight, you'll never straighten this mess out in this world. There's a Lord who loves you, knows everything about you, and still loves you. And he wants to live inside you. And it's only a simple faith. Thousands died for our freedom, but one died for our soul, and may it never be said here. God and the soldier all men adore in times of trouble, but never before. When the trouble's gone, the wrong has been cited. God is forgotten, and the soldier slighted. May it never be in Belleville High School. Thank you. God bless America.